Hello. Make your way onto your mat. If you'd like to use blocks for some of the poses, just keep them by the side. And if you don't have blocks, that's totally fine. To begin this sequence, you're welcome to start in a comfortable seated position, or if you prefer, you can start on your back, either with your knees bent, resting your arms by your side, or you're welcome to start in Shavasana with your whole body resting on the mat. In whatever position you've chosen to begin, take a few breaths here and settle into your mat. Let your body relax. And as you're in the pose you've chosen, pause and feel what's going on in your body. Notice any areas of discomfort or tension, or perhaps any of your body that feels really good and healthy and strong and relaxed. Yin Yoga is all about coming into each pose, meeting the pose as deeply as you can, and then holding there, staying there, and inviting your body to release, and perhaps go just a little bit deeper. But as you're doing this, always feel what's going on with your body. If there's any discomfort in the joints or something that really doesn't feel right, of course, honor that and come out of the pose slightly. But if it's a good sensation, even if it's a bit strong, I invite you to dive in a little bit deeper. Invite your body to passively release and go a little deeper into the pose without forcing. There's a quote by Richard Wagamese. He was a Canadian author. "A world so still, you swear you can hear her breathe. There rises within you the notion that stillness is more enriching than motion. Listening is more empowering than distraction. And slow, measured steps feel more graceful than speed." If you're in a seated position, place your feet on the mat, knees bent, and slowly roll onto your back. If you're in Shavasana, just bend each knee and place the soles of the feet on the mat. Gently hug your left knee into your chest. Option to stay here or straighten the right leg. And now gently hug your right knee to your chest and lower the left foot to the mat, or maybe straighten the left leg. Just feel what's the best position for you today. And now gently hug both knees to your chest. With your knees bent close to your chest, you may prefer to keep your spine flat on the mat, just letting your hips lower enough and your low back low enough that your entire spine is in contact with the mat. Or you might prefer to hug your knees tight and your hips and maybe your shoulders lift a bit. See what position is best for your body. Just feel. Release. And now place each hand behind each knee, roll along your spine, can come up to a seated position. Swing your feet behind you, coming onto all fours, and tuck your toes. Lift your knees up off the mat and walk your feet forward to your hands. Letting your knees be slightly bent. Let your head, your torso melt towards the mat. Your hands might dangle, or maybe they reach the mat. You can also cross your arms and let your elbows dangle. Or if you're using blocks, you can rest your hands on blocks. In yin yoga, we call this dangling pose. So just think of letting your head dangle. Let your whole spine and torso melt towards the mat, passively encouraging the body to release more deeply in the forward fold. Breathe here. Think of letting go. Couple more breaths. And now just turn and face the side of your mat. And now take your feet nice and wide, feet parallel to each other, and fold forward again. Keep each foot flat on the mat. And then allow your body to fold a little more deeply. Again, maybe on this side your hands reach the mat, or you might grab your elbows, let your elbows dangle, or you might place your hands on blocks. And just feel how this pose feels on your body. Invite it to release a little bit more. Might feel a little stretch on your inner thighs, your adductors, maybe your low back, or somewhere else. Just feel, and can you release more deeply into the pose? And a few more breaths. Just breathe as you exhale, release a little bit more. And then placing the hands on the mat or on the blocks, just lift up just enough and bend your knees slightly and walk your feet together. Make your way to a seated position. And straighten the right leg. Keep the right foot flexed, so toes are pointing towards the ceiling. And bring the sole of the left foot to the right inner thigh. Gently twist to the right so you're facing the straight leg. If you need to, you can bend that right leg slightly, but work towards straightening it. Or you can sit on a block that elevates your hips. Gives your hips a little more space. Drape the left hand to the outside of the right leg. As you exhale, fold forward, walk your hands forward. And this is a passive stretch in yin. Just think of releasing forward. Feel what's happening. And invite your body to release. Be here for a couple of minutes. You might notice your body softening into the pose on its own, just slightly. breathe. Think of letting go. Option to flex that right foot towards you. Breathe. Let go. Be here for 5 or 6 more breaths. And one more breath. Very slowly, keeping your head lowered, slowly roll back up. And now straighten the left leg and bring the sole of the right foot to the left inner thigh. Twist to the left to face so your torso is facing your left leg. And again on this side, if you need that knee slightly bent or you want to sit on a block, you can do that. With your right hand, drape it to the outside of your left leg. As you exhale, invite your body to fold forward, maybe walking your hands forward. You can let your head lower in the direction of that leg. Option to flex those toes towards you, the toes of the left foot. And breathe. Just continue to breathe. Feel what's happening in your body. And invite it to release just a little more deeply into the pose. Without forcing, it's an encouraging invitation. Can you release just a little bit more? Soften into the pose. Be here for 5 or 6 more breaths. One more breath. And slowly make your way back up. So come on to tabletop, all fours. If you might use blocks in this next sequence, just keep them near the front of your mat. Step your right foot forward and walk the left knee back. Keep each hand on the outside of that right foot. And then send the hips softly forward. Just breathe into this release. The toes of the left foot can be tucked or tops of the foot on the mat. Up to you. Just invite the hips forward. Relax your jaw, your teeth, your shoulders. If you're using blocks, your hands can rest on the blocks. Breathe, feel, and release. Can you invite your hips forward just a little bit more? And now bring the right hand to the inside of the right foot. So if you're using blocks, it will look like this. If you're not using blocks, just keep both hands to the inside of that right foot. And now press the big toe of the right foot into the mat. Hug that right knee to the right shoulder. It may want to open out. Keep it pressed into that shoulder as you still send your hips forward. Just let them release forward. Couple more breaths. And now release that stretch, still keeping both hands to the inside of the right foot, hands either on blocks or on the mat. Lift the toes up of the right foot, so you're just pivoting on the right heel. Turn the right toes out to the right, roll onto the baby toe side and let that knee open wide away from you. So from the front, you're lifting your toes up, turning the toes and knee out, and then gently offering your chest lower, letting your hips lower towards the mat. You might just keep your hands on blocks here, still sending the hips forward. Or you might come onto your hands, bend your elbows a little lower, or maybe for some you might come right onto your forearms. And breathe. Let that knee open wide. Just feel and release. A few more breaths. And then place each hand on the mat. Lower the right knee to beside the left. Place the tops of the feet on the mat and gently lower your hips over your heels. Option to just lower your chest, forehead, maybe resting your forehead on a stack of fists or your hands, and release. And then place each hand back on the mat, come back to tabletop. And now step your left foot forward as far forward as you can. Each hand, left hand on the outside of the left foot, right hand on the inside. Send the hips forward, hands on the mat or on blocks. And send the hips forward. Right toes can be tucked or top of the foot on the mat. Breathe, feel, and release. Relax your shoulders. Scan your body and feel any tension. And can you release that and let it go? Breathe. Soften the hips forward. Couple more breaths. Now bring both hands to the inside of the right foot. Either hands on blocks or right on the mat, and continue to send the hips forward. And now hug that left knee to the left shoulder. That left foot may want to roll to the outside, but just keep hugging it to that shoulder. Press the big toe of the left foot firmly in the mat to keep it in a line. And soften the hips forward. Breathe. Just a few more breaths here. And then just release the pose just enough. Let your hips come back. Now lift the toes of the left foot up. Pivot on that heel, turn the toes out, let that knee open to the left. And then send your hips forward again. And from here, you might stay here with your hands on blocks or your hands right on the mat. Lower your chest towards the mat. Maybe on this side you come right onto your forearms. Or maybe you just stay with your hands on blocks or on the mat. Still send the hips forward, letting that left knee stretch out to the side. Breathe. Let go. A few more breaths. And then lower your left foot back down to the mat. Hips can come back. And bring the left knee back to beside the right. Come onto the tops of your feet. Gently lower your hips over your heels. And rest your body in child's pose. Forehead maybe right on the mat or on your hands or stacked fists. Breathe and feel. Notice how it feels on each side. And then place each hand back on the mat. Come up to tabletop and make your way to a seated position. So bring the soles of your feet together and let your knees open wide. If this is really uncomfortable, maybe in your hip flexors or your outer hip or anywhere around your pelvic region, place a block under your sit bones and sit on the block. Have your legs more in a diamond shape so your feet are away from your hips, from your sit bones. You might start with your hands behind you, or with your hands push your chest forward. Option to reach forward with your hands, maybe grabbing your shins, ankles, or feet. Fold forward and release. You can either let your back round, letting your head dangle towards your feet, or you might prefer to keep your spine straight and just energetically push your chest forward towards the wall in front of you as you bring your shoulders back. Whatever version suits your body best. Remember to feel, observe what's happening in each part of your body, and then release a little deeper. Soften, relax. We'll be here for 4 or 5 more breaths, maybe 6. Let your knees open wide a little bit more. And then slowly make your way back up. So the next pose we're coming into is a squat. We'll only be there for a minute or so, just maybe a little longer. If you have any issues with your knees and it might bother your knees, just stay in this pose for another minute or 2. Otherwise, if you're ready to try a squat, come on to, with knees bent, just lift your hips up and come on to both feet. Let your knees open wide and let your feet and knees point in the same direction. And then bring the backs of your arms to your inner thighs. You can either bring your palms together and then push your legs away from you as you hug your knees together, or you can just rest your hands on the mat. And breathe. Otherwise, stay in the previous pose in Baddha Konasana, or butterfly pose they call it in Yin. If your knees can handle a squat, it's a really nice stretch for your low back. But if it bothers your knees, avoid this pose. Just think of letting your hips sink towards the mat. We're here for 6 or 7 more breaths. And then release your hands to the mat. In whatever position you're in, place your hands on the mat and come onto tabletop. So the next pose is frog pose. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing on the video. Turn and face the side of your mat. And think about how wide you can make your knees with your coming right on the knees. And just get an approximate idea of where each knee is going to be on the mat. And now roll each end of the mat up so that it's got a nice little padded area for each knee. Well, it may unroll, but... And then place each knee as wide away from each other as you can. And now I'll turn and face the side. Bring the feet away from each other so the shins are parallel to each other. So each knee is directly above each heel. Flex your feet. So from the side, you take your knees wide and then have your feet on the floor as if there's a wall behind you. Toes turned out. And from here, you can move your hips forward or back to find just the right stretch, maybe coming onto your forearms. And you might find that after a few breaths, you can let your knees go a little bit wider. This is a good stretch for the groin. Just keep the arches of your feet flat on the mat, feet flexed. Breathe here. We'll be here for a few minutes. If you can, walk your knees wider, and if this is plenty, just hang out here. Just feel. Can you release? You can move your hips back and forth, back or forward, find just the right stretch for you. Breathe. Think of letting go. Be here for another minute or so. Try to stay with it. Just soften into the pose. A few more breaths. And then slowly place each hand up back on the mat. And then gently bring your feet together. Pressing your toes into the mat, gently bring your knees together. And you can unroll your mat. Now from here, keep your hips above your knees. Your knees may want to go back or a bit forward, but try to keep them still and above your knees. We're coming into Anahatasana. It's a heart opening pose. Walk your hands forward, stretching as far forward as you can. Hips stay right where they were above the knees. And then lower the chest towards the mat. Maybe your forehead reaches the mat, or you can place your forehead on a block. Whatever feels right for you. Breathe. Let your body soften into this pose. Think of releasing, letting go. Can your chest open up any wider? Few more breaths. And slowly walk your hands back under your shoulders. And now just come up to a kneeling position. So keep your toes tucked. If you need to, you can start with your hands on the mat. Actually, let's all start with your hands on the mat. Toes are tucked and toes are spread wide. Slowly lean back. Gently bring your hips onto your heels. Continue to get your toes to spread wide. This might already be challenging enough, so just hang out here, lifting your hips up as need be. Or walk your hands back and sit right onto your heels. Breathe. This is a great stretch for the plantar fascia. If you need to, just come out of it again and try again. We'll just be here for 3 or 4 more breaths. Try to stay with it. And then slowly walk your hands forward. Untuck your toes and just circle your ankles in one direction and go the other direction. And come on to a seated position. Bend both legs with both feet over to the right. Adjust your left foot so your left knee is at a 90-degree angle. Left foot stays flexed. Bring the right knee to the left heel and make the right leg in a 90-degree angle. Right foot flexed. So you can twist to the left and walk your hands forward, maybe coming onto your forearms. If you'd like to go a little deeper, walk your hands over your left knee or even straight ahead and come onto your forearms. Or just stay with your hands on the mat. See where you get the best stretch on your hips, your body. And breathe here. Be here for a couple of minutes, and you can adjust as you need. Feel how this feels on your body. Maybe release a little deeper. Breathe and feel. Maybe release. Couple more breaths. And slowly lift back up. And then lift your knees up and bring your feet over to the left. Let your knees roll to the right. Start with your right leg. Have that right knee in a 90-degree angle, right foot flexed. And bring your left knee to your right ankle and then adjust your left leg so it's in a 90-degree angle, foot is flexed. Excuse me. Walk your hands over to the right, either staying here and lowering onto your forearms or keeping your hands on the mat, or walk your hands a bit closer to your right knee, maybe over your shin. Hands might stay on the mat, or you might come onto your forearms. Just breathe here and let go. Continue to feel. Let your body release into the pose. Maybe adjust the twist slightly or stay where you are. A couple more breaths. And place your hands on the mat and come make your way up to a seated position. So we're coming into a seated forward fold. In Yin we call this caterpillar pose. If you prefer, you can sit on a block, but straighten each leg. Maybe start with your hands on the mat behind you. And with your hands on the mat, push your chest forward. Maybe walking your hands forward. Go as far as you can, far forward into the pose as you can. Maybe your hands stay on the mat behind you. Maybe you walk your hands forward. And just fold forward and release. Option to flex those toes towards you for a little stretch on your hamstrings. Just breathe here. Can you release and let go? Think of releasing into the pose every time you exhale. We'll be here for a couple of minutes. Just feel this pose on your body. Can you relax and release? Continue to breathe. Just a few more breaths. And slowly make your way back up and bring the soles of your feet together. Let your knees open wide away from you. You may prefer to sit on a block here. That just opens, gives your hips a bit more space. And with your soles of your feet together, feet not too close to your sit bones, so they're away from, they're in front of your knees. Either start with your hands behind you, or with your hands, push the mat away from you to lean forward. Maybe your hands find your feet. And fold forward here. Breathe. Just be here for a minute or so. Can you release? Let go. And slowly make your way back up. And now straighten your right leg in front. Cross your left foot over your right leg. With your right hand, grab your left ankle and pull it back as close to that right hip as you can. And then with each hand, hold on to each knee and lower that left knee so it is on top of the right knee or close. But keep that left foot flexed. So if you need to, you can start with your hands behind your back and push your chest forward. If you can either stay here, or if you're wondering what the purpose of this pose is and you don't feel anything at all, you can also bend the right knee and bring that right heel close to your left hip. But only stay with both knees bent if you can do so with both sit bones on the floor. If your left sit bone is up high, just straighten the right leg. Try to breathe. Stay with it. And hold. Feel and relax. Release. In Yin, we call this shoelace pose. In Hatha and the other kinds of yoga, it's called cow face pose or Gomukhasana. Couple more breaths. And slowly uncross each leg. And now straighten the left leg out front. Bring the sole of the right foot to the left inner thigh and cross that right foot over your left. Now just pull that right foot back so it's near your left hip. Keep that foot flexed and lower the right knee over the left. And maybe on this side you stay right here. Or option to try bending the left knee, bringing that left foot close to the right sit bone. In this case, if both knees are bent, both feet, keep them flexed. And again, if that right sit bone is lifting up high, just straighten the left leg. Breathe. Try to softly let your body melt into the pose. Soften. Relax your jaw, your spine, your shoulders. Invite your hips to relax. Couple more breaths. And slowly uncross your legs. Just windshield wiper your knees side to side. Now for this next pose, it's a fairly deep hip opener. It's called Agnastambhasana or fire log pose. Or in Yin, sometimes we call this square pose, I think. If it's too much, just bring the soles of your feet together and let your knees open wide, maybe sitting on a block. Otherwise, straighten your right leg and bring your left shin across so your left shin is parallel to your hips. So adjust that foot forward or back so your heel and knee go straight across and they're in the same direction as your hips. Now it's important to keep that left foot flexed and think about letting that left knee open. And then when you're ready, just place the right foot on the mat, right knee bent. With your right hand, grab the right foot. So just by lifting the foot up, you might say, like, that's as far as I can go. So you can hang out here, using both hands to hold that right leg and circle that knee. This is option 1. This might be plenty. Or work towards bringing that right foot over that left knee. It might only go part way today. That is totally fine. So just hang out here, hold it. Or keeping that right foot flexed. Both feet should be flexed. That protects your knees. Bring that right ankle and place it on the left thigh. If it will go there. Don't force it, but encourage. And then let that right knee lower. So your right knee is over your left ankle. Left ankle is resting on the right knee. Breathe here. Maybe start with your hands on the mat behind you. Let the knees open wide. Think of releasing. And again, if this is too much, just uncross your legs, bring the soles of your feet together, letting the knees open wide. Just relax your jaw. Think of softening into the pose. A few more breaths. Can you release any more deeply? And now with your left hand, hold your right foot. With your right hand, hold that knee and just circle that knee. And then lower that foot to the mat. And now just move your left foot out to the side and bend your right knee and adjust that right leg so your right shin is parallel to your hips, your sit bones. Flex that right foot and let that right knee open wide. And now with your hands, hold your left foot and knee, maybe circling the leg. Maybe on this side, this is as far as you go today. That's okay. Or keeping that foot flexed, both feet are flexed. Bring your left ankle and place it on top of your right knee. And then invite that left knee towards the right ankle. It might not be close, there might be lots of space between them. Option to place your hands on the mat behind you as you invite your knees to settle, your hips to open. Breathe. After this, we'll be cooling down and then getting ready for Shavasana. Try to stay with it. Think of softening your cheeks, your shoulders, your upper back. Can you relax your hips? Just a few more breaths. And then take your left foot and knee in each hand and circle that leg. And then make your way onto all fours. Stretch the right leg out behind you, pressing the toes into the mat. Just gently push that heel back for a little stretch on that calf. And then lower that knee to the mat and stretch the left leg, left toes into the mat. Push the heel back. And then lower that knee to the mat. Come on to a seated position. Slide your hips forward, knees bent, roll onto your back. Let your arms rest on the mat away from your body. Slide your hips to the right, bringing your feet together. Gently let your knees roll to the left. Your gaze might be over your left arm or your right. Just for a few breaths here. And then bring your knees back to center. Slide your hips to the left. Bringing the feet together, roll the knees to the right. Gaze over your right arm or your left for a few breaths. And slowly bring your knees back to center. One by one, straighten each leg. Let each arm rest on the mat, perhaps a few inches away from your body. As you inhale, let your chest open wide. Let your body feel light and buoyant. As you exhale, think of releasing and letting go. Let your body sink into the mat. And let both your mind and body be fully still and rest in Shavasana. Softly deepen your breath. Gently feel your fingers and toes. Invite some movement to your arms and legs. Option to hug your knees to your chest or stretch your arms and legs, your whole body. And slowly, in your own time, roll over to one side. And slowly make your way up to a seated position. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste.